Everybody wants to hear about aliens these days.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Let's talk about that.
You may be somebody that's researched different theories on this more than anybody else. Well, from a position of not just trying to understand it so you can talk to other people about it, but actually like the merits of the argument. So I'm wondering, the Nimitz, those images have been pretty compelling for a lot of people. Now, my understanding is the 1940s and 50s, when a lot of people were seeing these things, these are like hypersonic test aircraft and things like that, probably, that are bouncing around. But some of these some of these videos from the Nimitz, the object moves in a way that we don't know how to make things move. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean
that's what it appears to do.
Right. Yeah.
But you have to understand that these are being filmed by a camera on the bottom of a jet that's rotating. They're on these gyroscopic devices that rotate the camera. So it's not clear what's moving. Is it the object that's being filmed, or is it the camera that's moving so that it makes the object appear to move faster than it does? The guy that's done the heavy lifting on this is Mick West. He's a columnist for Skeptic, and he has his own website, Metabunk. I would direct people to. He's got just fantastic videos on each of those, kind of evaluating each of the different claims. They're all slightly different. There's one, for example, where the object is white and it's a certain size and it's dead center of the film, and there's a little frame around it, and all of a sudden it shoots off to the left. And the guy goes, oh my God, wow, look at that. And people doing evaluations of that video say, well, it just shot to the left at some enormous speed, like 10 times the speed of sound. How could that possibly happen? We have no technology to do that. The pilot would be killed, and so on. But as Mick pointed out, if you look in the upper left of that frame, it says zoom. That's the zoom, and it goes from 1 to 2. So the camera zoomed on the object. So the object is actually not moving at all. It's going that way because the frame is moving closer to it.
Oh boy!
And each of these videos has an explanation along those lines. They're not perfect. The government has not come out and said, yes, that's the explanation. They've been disturbingly quiet about these videos, and the videos are not new. They're new in pop culture, but they date back more than a decade. And then much is made about the New York Times covering it. The New York Times said they're real. Okay, first of all, when you say they're real, what's the they? It's the videos. The videos are real, not CGI. They're not fake. So they're not saying that the objects are really aliens, which is what people seem to hear when they hear that phrase, they're real. And the New York Times article is written by Leslie Kean, who is a longtime pro-ufologist. And Leslie wrote a best-selling book called UFOs. And in her book, and I cite her book, she says 95% of all sightings are fully explainable by normal natural things. If there's swamp gas, it's geese, it's a flock of birds, it's a bunch of planes, it's weather balloons, it's the planet Venus. There's like 100 different things that people think they see in the sky and misinterpret that end up having natural causes. So then we're down to, well, what's the other 5%? And the answer is it's just unknown. Not extraterrestrial, not Russian or Chinese drones. It's just we don't know what they are. Full stop. So the U in UFO is just unidentified. That's all it means. It doesn't mean extraterrestrial. Doesn't mean government cover-up. Right. Doesn't mean the Russian. And by the way, on that, since we're dealing with the Russians now, that business that the UAPs represent, not aliens, but Russian or Chinese, super advanced technology. I mean, they're like decades or centuries ahead of us. Impossible. That's back to your history of technology. That's not how technology develops. No invention has ever been made that didn't have a previous step and a previous step, and other people know about it. I mean, governments copy each other. They steal from each other. Corporations copy each other and steal from each other. The Manhattan Project was the most secret project in the history of the world, and the Russians had the bomb within 4 years. They stole our plans. They had a spy, right? And, Google and Apple have just enormous resources for intellectual property protection and security on site of their campus and so on. And yet still every computer, all the search, they're all pretty much the same. All the smartphones are the same. They all do the same thing. How is that possible if they have all these protections because we're good at copying and stealing other people's ideas. So there's no way the Russians or Chinese could have these drones or planes that could do things that our planes can't do. We would know about it. Okay, so then the extraterrestrial hypothesis is unlikely, not impossible. And here I'll just make a general point that the question, are they out there, is different from have they come here?
Right.
So the SETI scientists that study the possibility of life on other planets in our solar system or elsewhere, extra solar system planets, which we're getting the technology online now to be able to evaluate the light coming from a star behind a planet that passes through its atmosphere, and we can then measure that light and see if there are chemical elements in the atmosphere that would only be produced by living organisms. Okay,
like greenhouse gases and things like that, or what do you mean?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, like oxygen, more oxygen that would be produced naturally from volcanic activity, or something that would be produced by plants. That would be an indication that that planet has living organisms, even though you can't even see the planet; it's too far away. That's amazing technology. So all of that is along the lines of that. We assume that we're not natural, or we're not normal. That is to say, we're the Copernican principle. We're not special. Sorry, I misspoke that we are normal. We're not special. We're not the only ones in the cosmos. That seems reasonable. I suspect the trillions of planets that are out there, that there's other living organisms, and there's also probably extraterrestrial intelligence. But that's a different question than have they come here. Now, to be fair, we have no evidence to say yes on either one of them. Right? We have no signals, no contact like sequence of prime numbers like in Carl Sagan's Contact with Jodie Foster with the cans on her head listening to the beeping sound. We have nothing like that yet. And we have no UFOs here. I mean, we have lots of grainy videos and blurry photographs, but no alien spaceships or bodies, none. All we have is negative evidence. They're hiding them in Area 51. That's why we don't have any evidence. Okay, that's a flawed argument. It's the same argument George W. Bush used when he invaded Iraq on the premise of weapons of mass destruction, and they couldn't find them. And the initial response is, that's how we know they have them, because they hid them so carefully and they moved them. We can't find them. It's like, no, that doesn't count as evidence.
Well, technically, we knew they had them because we sold them to them in the first place. But we also
in the day.
We also oversaw the destruction allegedly. So, but yeah, I want to get into this alien thing a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do that.
I heard on one of your recent podcasts you were talking about, you and your guests were talking about the Drake equation, and how even a small, or even an extremely conservative view on the Drake equation might produce like 36 intelligent civilizations in our galaxy, which would be like trillions of intelligent civilizations, basically.
In the universe, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems to me that I mean, I get that it's all theoretical, right? Because we don't know. It would be weird if we were alone.
Right. We don't know.
It would be very weird if we were alone.
It would be weird.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not the case. But it does seem likely. And the one thing that I can't get past is traveling through space. It takes so much time. You know what I mean? A civilization that has figured out how to generate enough energy and mass in the location to create a wormhole or whatever we're talking about, however we're talking about, or to some of these theories about spacecraft that use gravity to travel instead of propulsion and things like that, without ripping a human being to pieces or whatever, like an organic body to pieces. I figure if a civilization has progressed far enough to figure that out, they might be able to cruise right by us and we would never know. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the big problem for space travel, I think, is this is all so large. We could never hope to know all of this, right?
This is my answer to the Fermi Paradox, which is where is everybody? If you follow the argument you just made, and that they would be exploring the entire galaxy within like 10 to 100 million years, and we're billions of years old. So okay, where are they? They should be here. And, so there's like 50 different answers to this question. One of which is, they're very small. It's just AI robots. They're not actual organic beings that are exploring the galaxy, or they're doing it not even physically, just through some kind of like, kind of almost a cyber, like just laser beams or whatever that carry information, or they use cloaking devices, right? It's the zoo hypothesis that they're watching us and they don't want us to see us watching us. And so they're cloaked. There's Star Trek episodes about that. And, all that is possible. More likely, it's just what you said. It's mostly empty space. And it's just vast distances between solar systems. It's just stunning how far apart they are. If two galaxies pass through each other, like the Andromeda galaxy will pass through the Milky Way galaxy in several billion years, apparently, and it's likely the 100 billion stars in our galaxy won't hit any of the 100 billion stars in their galaxy, even though when you look at them, they look pretty dense.
Right.
But it's mostly empty space. So again, analogies help. If our sun was the size of an orange and it was here in LA, I don't know where you are, but if the closest sun to us, the Alpha Centauri system, would be another orange in Chicago, 2,000 miles away, right? So what are the chances of those orange colliding? None. It's just mostly just empty space. And that's the problem. I just think if they're out there, they haven't found us because they just missed us. I mean, it's hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people are really realize that. Like you look at astronomical figures, and then you look at something like Saturn and its rings and how close, in astronomical terms, those rings are together, but they still don't collide. Despite being relatively close to one another. Somebody, I can't remember who it was. It may have been Tyson, but he said that if the I'm taking this down to the micro level now. So, an atom, if the Rose Bowl was an atom, the nucleus would be the size of a golf ball on the 50-yard line. Basically, is the comparison he made.
Right.
And it's not just the universe as we know it that's huge. It's the space between things is always huge, and that seems like to be the one consistent thing between the micro world and the macro world to me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, right. Lots of gaps. Although in the case of atoms, they're vibrating, they're jiggling. That's the reason your cup and your laptop and whatever that thing is that a gun?
Yes, sir.
On your desk?
Yeah, sure is.
Doesn't fall through the wood, because the atoms in the wood are solid and the atoms in the gun are solid. And even though the atoms themselves are made of mostly empty space, but they're jiggling. They have, the little electrons going around the nucleus of the atom, and it's essentially like a solid object at our level. Anyway, so yeah, so aliens, what could be more fascinating? I think it's back to religion. It's almost like a religious impulse. I call them deities for atheists, sky gods for skeptics. It's the idea that there's somebody out there that knows we're here, that's more advanced than us, maybe even omniscient, or apparently omniscient, all powerful, which a sufficiently advanced extraterrestrial intelligence or far future human civilization would be essentially omniscient and omnipotent.
Well, that's Arthur C. Clarke, right?
Yes.
What's
right.
a sufficiently advanced
technology?
Sufficiently
advanced technology
like
is indistinguishable from magic. Yeah. So I changed that. And I took that and ran with it with indistinguishable from God.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sufficiently advanced. Yeah. So again, just look what we've been able to accomplish in the last century, and just extrapolate that out 100 centuries or 1,000 centuries, and we would seem godlike to. Already, we would seem godlike to a Neanderthal. You hold up show them a cell phone and a smartphone, and you'd be deified.